you generally think that when you're thinking about, as I mentioned before, the structure of the objective world, but Nietzsche is making an entirely different point here, and what he's fundamentally doing is treating the philosopher not as a rational being, but as a living being. And there's a big difference between being a rational being and being a living being. Because if you're a living being, your primary goal is to do whatever it is that furthers your life. And if you're a rational being, then your primary goal is to do whatever it is that a rational being might do. And you could say that a living being should first and foremost be a rational being. And in some sense, that's the message of the Western Enlightenment. But it's by no means self-evident that that's the case. And it's certainly not something that Nietzsche doesn't believe that people are rational beings. Certainly not primarily, and more importantly, he isn't exactly convinced that they should be. So for example, one of Nietzsche's most famous maxims is that truth serves life, and that's a very different idea than the purpose of truth, say, is the accurate representation of the objective world. Those aren't the same thing at all. Now you could ask, well, what does it mean for truth to serve life? And if you construed truth that way, what would truth look like? And, you know, the mere statement that truth should serve life doesn't offer you the answers to those questions, but it's the beginning of a different metaphysics, and in some sense a metaphysics which is, say, the universe within which a philosopher might operate. A metaphysics is the initial structure of presuppositions within which a view of the world is organized. One presupposition might be human beings are rational and that we're attempting to formulate and improve our sense of the objective world, our formulation of the objective world. And another would be that human beings aren't rational, we're irrational, and that what we're motivated to do is to live, whatever that means, and that the purpose of our thinking and our philosophy should be to facilitate our living. And that's one of the foundation blocks of Nietzsche's philosophy. So he's a moral philosopher, fundamentally, because morality is about values, and values, essentially, you could say values are what you aim for, but it's more complicated than that. Values actually constitute the lens through which you view the world, so it's partly what you're aiming at, but it's also partly your conception of who you are now and where you are, and it's also partly your conception of how you're going to get to where it is that you want to be, and it's also partly the psychological system that you use to parse up the world so that it reveals to you the pathway that you can take to get to what you want. Value is all of that, and then it's more than that, because you could say that you have a value, which contains all of that, but then you can say that you have a set of values, which is the arrangement of all of that, and then you could say that you have a set of values that's the arrangement of all that you have to arrange with other people, and then you could say that you have all that and you have to arrange it with other people, and you have to arrange it across different spans of time, because what you want today and what you want next week and what you want next month are not necessarily the same thing, and one does not necessarily lead into the other. So to be a moral philosopher is to examine what that system is and how it operates and how it came about.